Welcome to the Worship Leader Hangout podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how to lead a new team without planning center. And to my left, to your right on your screen, is not Davin. It is somebody completely different. This guy's name is Jourdan with a U.
That's me.
You can check him out on all social media platforms. I'm prophetically speaking this into existence. All social media platforms, Jourdan's going to be called Jourdan with a U. So
that's right.
He's not even going to spell Jourdan right.
No.
It's just going to be Jourdan with a U. Sorry. Anyway, man, it's so good to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
It's so good to have you here, man. Okay, so just for a little bit of backstory, the reason why we're doing this whole thing is because Jourdan is in town for the first time in 14 weeks-ish?
Yeah.
14? Yeah.
Something about that.
So he's in town. He's normally a part of our worship team here at my church. And he decided to run off to Texas for the whole summer, and then he extended his time there in a different job situation to make a little extra money before he comes back home. And so we definitely miss him. He's a big part of our team, and he's our youth worship leader and bass player, guitarist, and just among other things, just a big help. So we definitely miss him, but he's back for a week, and I was like, bro, you got to tell us about your summer experience as a worship leader. And just like the title of this video, he was a worship leader for the summer with a brand new team and no planning center and very limited technology, basically just the necessities of worship service as far as technology.
Yeah.
No access to the internet except for maybe just a little bit.
Enough time to print sheet music.
Yeah. And no access to phones except for on Saturday?
Yeah, I had like a 24-hour span on a Saturday where I could use my phone.
So I'm going to let him dive into this and we're just going to talk about and unpack, is it even possible to lead a team? And we'll get in a few minutes as we move on in this podcast, I'll finish up with the question once we kind of unpack some of this. Is it possible? And you can tell me.
Okay.
And would you do it again? That kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about that first day jumping into this new situation.
Yeah. So my first day, I drove to Texas. It was a nice long drive. Ended up sleeping in my car, and I pull in and I get out of my car, and I see the two camp directors that I had been talking to over the phone, and I got out and I finally meet them in person.
And you had only talked to them on the phone,
right? I talked to them on the phone. I ended up doing one video interview with one of them, but I had never met them or anything. So I get out of the car, and so I recognized them, and I was like, okay, hey, how's it going? We ended up talking a little bit, and then they basically said, hey, your worship team is on the stage, ready to start rehearsal with you.
Wow.
And I just arrived, right? So I just pulled in.
You didn't even have time to put a bag away.
No, everything's still in my car. I get out, and then I didn't expect it at all. And they just say, hey, your team's ready on the stage. And
wow. Okay.
So I say, okay, and I walk in, and there they are on the stage, all plugged in. They're getting practiced up, and then...
the reason why they were already there is because you because of work or whatever, you went a few days later than everybody else.
Correct. Okay. I really didn't know. I didn't even know about the job until they had already been there for half a week.
Oh, yeah. Half a week. Okay.
Yes. So when I got there, they'd been there a week at that point.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So what was that like? Just walking in, how did you introduce yourself? And I mean, that's a brand new team. Right off the bat, you've got to lead worship probably that night.
Yeah, so they gave us about 3 hours. We were supposed to lead worship 3 hours after that.
Okay.
Which was weird because I never met any of these people. So I get on the stage, and a lot of it, initially it was me trying to get my instruments up on stage, and then I just had to say, hey, how's it going? I'm Jourdan. I met everyone face to face, shook their hand, got to know them just a little bit. And then once we kind of got decently familiar with each other is when we had to say, okay, what do we even want to do tonight? Because we really didn't know for
Yeah,
sure.
you didn't have a plan yet for that
There
night.
was a few songs that we figured we'd do, but it was still a little rough.
Yeah.
So we spent a little bit of time just figuring out what we even wanted to do. And then we ended up just having to get my sound guy at the time to print out the sheet music for us because we didn't have access to Planning Center or any sort like that. So that's pretty much all chord charts for them. And so
What did you use when you printed stuff out?
it was pretty much just me looking it up on Google.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just Google it and then make it work. Print out from wherever.
Did most people need the chord charts the whole time, or was it just kind of more of a reference?
Everyone needed it. They were talented musicians, but they were just not as experienced. So they needed to have that. Other than the drummer, of course.
How did you do? Because so how? All right, just how often did you lead worship each week?
Every day. So
that's pretty cool.
We never took a day off. No.
That's pretty cool. So what was kind of the outline or the I don't know, yeah, kind of the outline of, okay, Monday you did this, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then what was the difference between like the weekdays and the weekend, that kind of thing?
So
if there were any.
There wasn't much difference other than Sunday nights is when our campers first initially arrived.
Okay.
And that's
you
when
led worship for the camp that night.
Yes.
Okay.
So they would get there, and we would have worship that night, and that was going to be more upbeat songs. We ended up doing like 4 or 5 songs that night.
Okay.
They were mostly upbeat, and then maybe like one like a little bit more slow at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
But once Monday came around, the template was basically 2 fast songs, 2 slower songs, which is kind of just how they wanted us to lead worship. And so Monday through Friday was pretty much like that, except Friday was 4 songs that were all slower because it was more of a camper share. And where Saturday, we just did 2 songs in the morning for like our closing day. So the parents could just kind of get an idea of what that looked like throughout the week, what their kids were experiencing.
Okay. So you were leading worship for the kids every day.
Yes.
Did you have a time? Did you say you had a time that you led worship with just the staff? Was that ever?
So that did happen occasionally, but what it was is, and during training week, we did have worship occasionally. So whenever I got there was one of those days. We had a different camp come and visit, and they were a part of that worship.
Okay.
And then we ended up doing one more that week. But then beyond that, we had like halfway through summer and then the very end of summer that I ended up leading worship for just staff.
Okay.
So it was pretty much just an acoustic guitar, and staffers would just meet outside at we had like a little skate park. And so while the campers were going to sleep, we would all just meet out there and we'd have like a 25-minute worship session.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's good. So what was it like? How did the dynamic between you and the team, and like how did that progress through the next couple of weeks? Because I know you guys spent like 10 weeks together.
Right.
So at what point do you feel like you, instead of everybody kind of being new to each other, at what point were all you guys friends, if ever? Like did that make a switch over to like, no, we're here for life for each other? Like, did it ever feel like that? Because I know in certain situations it can, especially when you travel together, but I know you guys didn't travel. You're in one location.
Right. So it took a couple weeks for us to get pretty familiar with each other. We were, from the second we met, we were like, okay, yeah, we're clearly going to get along really well.
That's cool.
But it wasn't until like the first or second week that we okay, we kind of actually know each other pretty good because we stayed in the same cabin and everything. So it was pretty easy to get to know each other when you live together pretty much 24/7.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got to know each other really well, and then I would say, yeah, it was probably week 2 when we were like, okay, we're really close. But the issue was that throughout the summer, we didn't always have a consistent team. So the initial team ended up becoming different by the end, just because
different people leaving and
a lot of my musicians weren't just my musicians; they were also like camp counselors and such. So I ended up rotating between 2 different bass players, a few drummers.
So that's similar to like a Sunday, like a normal.
Similar.
Yeah,
for sure.
similar as far as a rotation goes. But
Right.
yeah, so explain what all instruments did you have available,
So
and vocalists as well, because I don't
when
think we
we
talked about that.
very first started the summer, I had my electric guitar player who was just a musician, so he didn't do counseling or anything. So he was with
That's
me
good.
all summer. And then I had a drummer, and then I had a bass player, and then it was just me and my acoustic.
So you had electric guitar, drummer, bass, and you, an acoustic.
Me with acoustic.
You
yes.
on acoustic. Okay.
Correct.
So did you ever have a keys player?
Yes. So
Okay.
the second half of the summer, we had a keys player come as a counselor, and I found out about the eighth or ninth week. I found out she played keys, and she lived like a couple hours from our camp. So
Oh, okay.
she drove up, got her keyboard over the weekend, and came back, and we got her set up, and she started playing with us. So then we had all the same instruments we had before, but in addition to keys.
That's good.
Which was nice.
That's cool. So you had a pretty full band the whole time then.
Yeah. Through the first half of the summer, it was pretty much I was the only vocalist. But once the second halfers came, there ended up being a lot of female vocalists. So I ended up getting 2 really solid female vocalists that were pretty consistent.
Yeah. All right. So let's get back to the question at hand here. What was like your first step as far as like handling what songs you're going to do each day, as well as like how big was the repertoire? Meaning, I guess how many songs did you have to choose from, or did you just come up with a new song? As well as how did you either teach the songs, or did everybody just happen to have to know it, or if they didn't know it, they just listened to it on Saturday when they were able to get their phone back?
Right.
What? Because all right, where I'm coming from is, normally at a church for like our Sunday morning or our weekend team, obviously through the week we have unlimited access to the internet, so
Right.
our teams can just listen and learn and check the chord charts and whatnot. Go on Planning Center, we can have all that listed right there. Check what we need to, and basically be able to properly prepare. So if you guys wanted to do a song, you couldn't just say, well, let's just pull it up necessarily. Unless you just had it downloaded somewhere on a device that you were actually allowed to use. So I guess what I'm saying is, how did that work out? Or did you do mostly familiar songs, or did people just have to trust you when it came to learning a new song? Like, what was that dynamic like? Because I know on a rare occasion here, we'll be confused and just pull out a phone and say, all right, here it is. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's how it goes. Whereas you had to just kind of be like, do you already know this? Or I don't know. Just talk about that for just a second. I've talked too much.
So a lot of it, especially in the beginning of the summer, was making sure, okay, what songs do you know? Because obviously without that access to internet, you can't just say, okay, hey, we'll listen to this over the next few days and we'll get it going. So it was more like, okay, let's figure out what we actually know, and especially what I knew, because I was the only vocalist at the time. So it was like, okay, the biggest thing was making sure I knew the words, because if I didn't know the words, I don't have a projector in front of me showing the words.
Yeah.
I had to make sure I knew it.
You didn't have a confidence monitor at all?
Not at
for
all.
the whole
No.
summer?
Any song we did was,
that's good.
I just had to memorize, yeah. And so, in the beginning it was big making sure that we had just songs that we were all familiar with. And then throughout the summer, we ended up coming up with a set list that was a list of about 25 songs that we figured out, okay, we're confident playing these, and we're just going to play these the rest of the summer pretty much. And so I would just rotate them out every week, and I had pretty much a template for every week.
How many songs did you say?
About 25 songs
25
to
songs.
choose from.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was just a good...
That's good. That's a good list. It's not too many. I wouldn't think, especially with new campers coming in every week.
Right. So typically, because it was just different campers every week, a lot of the stuff we did was just going to be the same thing every week. but we continuously tried to adjust throughout the weeks simply for the staff's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though we're there for the campers, I also wanted to consider, okay, are the staffers getting tired of hearing the exact same songs every week? So,
and of course, they might, but I mean, that's, again, like you said, that's not necessarily why you guys are there.
Right.
For the staff, I mean, you guys are there to worship with students.
Right.
But I do appreciate you saying, yeah, we'll have fun with it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and not do the exact, because you could easily do the exact same thing every Sunday through Saturday.
Yeah.
And then right back again on Sunday, just like a cruise.
Oh, yeah.
Just same thing over and over. But I appreciate that you guys changed it up a little bit.
Right. So a lot of it ended up being like, okay, so this week we would have like discussions of like, okay, what kind of songs do we want to implement just to change things up even for us a little bit? And so we would say, here's a new song. Let's over the weekend get it downloaded on our laptops or whatever we had, because we could have our laptops, we just couldn't connect it to Wi-Fi, but we couldn't have our phones. So over the weekend we would go to a coffee shop and we would download the songs onto our laptops, and then you could listen to it throughout the week.
Okay, yeah.
Which was really helpful. And so we would do that and we'd learn them, and then we would do them after we had a little bit of time to get familiar with them.
Yeah.
So we would just implement them. We kept the fast songs pretty similar. Pretty much the entire summer we played the same ones. There was a few like Deep Cries Out we ended up exchanging for like Unstoppable God and stuff like that. But for the most part, the fast songs stay the same, and we would kind of rotate through the slower stuff.
That's pretty cool. That's a good idea. I might have to cut some of this silence out. I lost my train of thought. So, do you feel like that is the best way to kind of handle that type of situation? So if you had complete control of, the internet situation, like the internet rules that you guys had, like what would you change? What would you feel like you would change to make it better? I guess for the overall sake of the band, the team, the camp. I don't know. That's because, I'm not trying to get you to go against what the leadership said they thought was best, but then again, you might have your ideas on what might make it a little bit better for you guys anyway.
Right.
Would you change anything? Talk about that.
I would definitely change the access to the internet.
Okay.
So their point of view of it was they wanted to make sure that we weren't being filtered through anything that the internet could be feeding us, because you never know, like
Worship Leader Hangout videos.
Yeah, those are horrible.
Yeah. Gosh.
Totally joking. But yeah, so they want to make sure, like, hey, you're not watching these random rated R movies, and like you're just getting these bad filters coming through. And that was mostly important for the counselors being with the kids all the time.
Yeah.
Just making sure they were constantly getting like good things coming in so they could pour out correctly. But I think where they could have done better is allowing a little more access to the worship team, because like my electric guitar player, he was pretty new to it, and there was a lot of lead parts he wanted to learn, and a lot of it I was kind of able to show him slightly, but like I don't claim to be a great electric guitar player, so like I could only help him to a certain point. So if he had access to YouTube, because you can't download YouTube videos without having like YouTube Red, I think it is.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think they changed it premium, but
premium. Okay,
same thing.
So without that, he couldn't download videos and watch them throughout the week. So there was no way for him to look up, how do I do this lead part for this song or whatever it is, which was the toughest part, especially for him. And then I think really for anyone, it's kind of difficult when you can't look up tutorials, and which is a lot of the reason too why we didn't introduce too many new songs. Yeah, it was difficult to learn them.
Yeah, because of the internet.
Right.
Unless you knew it and you could teach every part,
or
you just let them kind of figure out what they think's best for that part, I guess.
Right. And a lot of the songs we just simplified to a point. We like, instead of like, okay, let's make sure we learn all the lead parts, it was like, okay, hey, just play rhythm, or whatever it could be. And
simple's not bad.
Not bad.
Especially in that situation.
Right.
Yeah, I completely understand, the bad habits or things that people might be addicted to and things like that. I mean, that can go really deep, but there probably is a better solution, even if you don't use Planning Center necessarily. Being able to have all your charts for every song, or at least have access to something that could supply that, like a song select account. You can go directly on there and grab songs.
Right.
And then, access to YouTube or whatever for your other stuff, and maybe not even on your cell phone. Maybe have a separate computer that's just for the band where they can learn. It's just a computer to resource the band to be able to learn and actually know their parts and things like that.
Right.
Because I could see the internet and your phone still being a negative thing in that situation. If you're constantly scheduling, and then people did have access to the phone, have to have access to the internet, and then you're like, oh yeah, let me go over here, and just get sidetracked with something completely different that wasn't the mission or the vision of the camp leadership. And so I completely understand that, but even though sometimes us worship leaders feel like we can't live without Planning Center, there is a way around it, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially in that situation.
Binders.
Yeah, binders, But having a proper way to download chord charts, especially since you said they were a little more leaning on that.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but yeah, I mean that would help. I mean, but one thing I think would help in that situation is if you did have access to Planning Center, you can just add everybody to every plan. And then that way, they didn't miss it.
Right.
If for whatever, because it didn't matter as far as scheduling, because you were all there or not.
Right.
You were either there for a long period of time or you left or whatever. So scheduling was irrelevant. But what could have been relevant is to have like iPads or several iPads to actually be able to look at music stand.
Right.
Song select account, be able to pull in those songs.
One thing I brought up to one of my leadership at the end of the summer, they asked me, okay, how could the worship team dynamic be like better like next summer? And one of the things I brought up was a worship iPad. So just an iPad that is monitored by Pine Cove. And they can
of course.
look through that and they can say, okay, cool, this is what they were doing. So then I couldn't go to Instagram and scroll through and
well, you wouldn't be logged in anyway. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
So like I just couldn't go wherever like and not expect to be seen. So then anybody that needed to use it, they could or even if we had like 2 or 3, like so that different people could look into it. So then, hey, I can look up lead part tutorials or whatever, and you still have access to that.
Right. Worship tutorials, friends of ours. Look at their parts.
Yeah.
And that would be a good thing to have. Yeah, maybe instead of a desktop, an iPad, and you could still plan everything on Planning Center. At least have everything laid out the way you think you want it. At least,
right.
At least to have a good idea. And then they can just click on the song, just like Planning Center, Yeah. But I guess if we're answering the question, is it possible to lead worship with a brand new team like you were just thrown into without Planning Center? What would your answer be?
It's totally possible. It's harder, but it's possible. I used Google Docs a lot.
Okay.
And I would take Google Docs and I would have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and go all the way through or whatever. And then I would go ahead and I would fill out every song we were going to do. I would do the set list for each day, print it out on one sheet, and I would print out enough for the whole team, and I would pass it out. And then they knew exactly what we were playing.
So it was just a set list?
Just a set list, yeah. And then they knew exactly what they were playing. And then also I printed out a paper with every song we were doing in general, like that list of like 25.
So that way, in their own time on that Saturday for a few hours, they could actually look up those songs if they needed to.
So they would get it before the weekend, or I would try to. Occasionally, I'd be too busy, but I would try my best to get it to them before the weekend. Then they could look through and say, okay, we're doing this song. I'm not as comfortable with that. And yeah.
But once you get to a certain point, though, in the summer, maybe 2-3 weeks in, I mean, you really could just make up the set that night or the day before.
Mhm.
Everybody already knows the songs. They should anyway.
Yeah.
Thumb through it in their booklet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know, or just pull those songs out and put them in order. That's what we used to do back in the day, high school.
Yeah.
I had every song I ever knew the chord chart for, and in a big binder, and then I would I knew what I did like 2 weeks ago because I can just scroll back like 3 or 4 songs
Mm-hmm.
and see what I did the previous week, because
Right.
I would take songs out and then I'd eventually have to re-alphabetize everything because it would get so mixed up. But
Yeah.
anyway, but that's good, man. That I think it's definitely possible. I mean, I don't think that we need internet and a lot of technology, but we've become so reliant on it,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have other options as far as like nobody carries around a discography of all their favorite worship. Everybody, it's all on their phone,
Right.
and we're mostly relying on the internet to hold that instead of downloading it on Spotify. We just leave it to stream,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what I mean, like.
Yeah.
So that's another way to pull all your songs to Spotify and then set them to download. And if you had an iPad for the team,
Right.
you could listen to that. And did y'all have like walk-in music and things like that? And was that already downloaded or was that streamed?
That was downloaded. So we had
Okay.
a desktop in the sound room,
Oh,
and it
okay.
was connected to Wi-Fi, but we really weren't allowed to use it. It was pretty much they had songs downloaded from Spotify, and we
Okay.
used ProPresenter on it. That's pretty much all
And
it was
that-
ever used for.
And that's that was my next question. You had ProPresenter
Yes.
for the campers to be able to read the
Right.
words and all
Yeah.
that.
So we had we had our screens, and it had the words on them and
Mhm.
everything.
But no confidence monitor.
No confidence monitor.
Man, we should relabel this podcast to "Can you lead worship without a confidence monitor?" I guess the answer would be yes, huh?
It's possible.
Yeah, just got to remember your lyrics.
When you start singing songs every week,
Yeah,
they're pretty internalized.
that's true. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
still, I mean, we should probably be able to do that too, even on Sundays.
Right.
I mean, truly internalize that. But we can go forever on that kind of subject. But man, I'm so glad you're back. But now you're going to leave again until like November.
Yeah.
So we're sad. I do want to challenge everybody who's listening, who's watching, not necessarily to stop using plain. Like, that's not what we're trying to say. We're trying to say, let's not become so reliant on everything. Sometimes we think we have to have it this way or we have to have it that way. We don't need a confidence monitor necessarily. We don't need planning center necessarily. I mean, it makes things a lot easier. It makes,
For sure.
making sure you know the words, but maybe try some different things here and there and just see what happens. You never know. Something might come out of that that's just incredible, or just something that you didn't expect. Anyway, we're going to end it right here, though. Thank you so much to Jourdan. Go check him out on social media. I think his username is my old Wi-Fi password.
Yes.
If you want to check him out. But I told him, again, he's going to change his username to all his social media platform to Jourdan with a U. Or it could be JO_RDAN with a
Mhm.
U. It's kind of,
Oh,
missing.
yeah. Let them know there's it's supposed to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't go follow that yet because he
not
hasn't
that
made
yet.
it. I'm going to make it, and he's got to buy it from me.
I mean, it depends on when you're watching this, of course.
Yeah, JordanWithAU.com.
Or listening.
That's right. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. This video is sponsored by Worship Leader Hangout courses. Probably by the time you listen to this or watch this, we'll have courses available online. Piano courses we're going to start out with. So go check those out. Go to worshipleaderhangout.com and you can direct yourself straight to the courses.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'm excited about that. Davin's going to bring those. Just start bringing those out all the time, hopefully, as often as we can. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, great worship leaders are...
Always learning.
That's right. He knew it. Let's go home. You ready?
Yep. Let's
Okay.
go.
No, but for real, are you hungry?
Yes.
We could go eat. I mean, unless you're eating with.
It's not Sunday.
It is not. What do you mean?
Chick-fil-A.
Oh yeah, we could go to Chick-fil-A, couldn't we? Dang. If it's Sunday when you're watching this, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mention.
We didn't mean to ruin your day.
We didn't mean to say Chick-fil-A. Sorry. All right, let's go.